Look at the title of this episode, Memories of the Future. What the heck does that mean? You can't remember the future.
I don't know. I'm remembering the future right now.
What? Really? What are you remembering?
I'm remembering that time I punched you in the face.
Huh? You never punched me in the... Ah! So before I get started, I just want to remind everybody that I do have a Patreon now, and I'm sure a lot of you have already checked out the Patreon, but if you haven't yet and you're curious and you just want to check it out and see what it's all about, well, there is a link in the video description. I've got to tell you, I love a good Bootstrap Paradox. And I just want to take a few minutes just to explain what a Bootstrap Paradox is, or at least what I think a Bootstrap Paradox is. I mean, I'm no theoretical physicist, so I could have it wrong to some degree, but I love it. Just want to take a minute to explain what I mean by that, just in case you and I aren't on the same page about the definition of that phrase. But the term Bootstrap Paradox, well, it comes from a short story, or a novella actually, a little bit longer than a short story, a little bit shorter than a novel, written by Robert Heinlein. And the name of it was By His Bootstraps. And the title, of course, comes from the old phrase, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, which is a physical impossibility. Like, some people, I think, have forgotten that over the years, but I don't care how strong you are or how hard you pull, you can't, like, grab the straps on your boots and pull it up so that you're just levitating there. Like, it's just not how physics and gravity works. So a bootstrap paradox is something that should be a physical impossibility. It's the kind of paradox that some people use to explain why time travel probably couldn't happen. But essentially, it's an effect that doesn't really have a cause. Like, the effect is the cause of that effect. And like in Robert Heinlein's story, just to make it clear, there's a guy who's working on like his PhD thesis. And this is a super streamlined version of the story. But he's working on his thesis that is setting about to prove time travel's impossible. While he's writing this thesis, a portal opens up in his bedroom. He steps through that portal and he's like 30,000 years in the future. And he sees this old man. And he says, the future is really different than the 20th century. So if you take this list of things that are written down in this notebook, you go back and get them in the 20th century, then bring them to me, I can be the king here. So the guy goes back, he gets all these things, but before he goes through the portal, he thinks he has a bright idea. He's going to go like 20 years earlier than when he met the old man, so he can be the king. So he goes 20 years earlier, he has that stuff, he becomes the king. 20 years later, this portal opens up and he sees himself jump through it and he realizes, whoa, I'm the old man. So he gives the younger version of himself the notebook. So the question is, where did that notebook come from? Because the young guy got it from the old man, but then the young guy became the old man to give it to the young guy. You see, it's like a circle. Something that you might relate to a little bit better is the Terminator series. And like in the Terminator movies, you know, the Terminator gets sent back in time to kill John Connor, but the Terminator gets defeated, but a piece of the Terminator's technology gets discovered, and that is what's used to develop Skynet, and then of course Skynet is who sends the Terminator back. So who invented that stuff? You know, it's all in this big loop, and that's why physicists, when they talk about what I'm calling a bootstrap paradox, they call it a causal loop, because it's all like without a cause, like the effect is the cause, so there's no origin to it. You know, it's like if you went back in time to Albert Einstein. And you know, the theory of relativity has been claimed by some to prove that time travel is possible. So let's say you use the theory of relativity to create a time portal. You went back in time and you found Albert Einstein before he ever created that theory. And just to symbolize it, I want to say E equals mc squared. I know there's a lot more to it, but let's just say you walked up to young Einstein, you whispered in his ear, and I'm not talking about Yahoo Serious young Einstein, I mean the real young Einstein. And you whisper in his ear, E equals mc squared. He goes, oh, that sounds good. He writes it down, he publishes it. Who came up with it? He didn't come up with it because he heard it from you, but you didn't come up with it because you learned it from him. Causal loop. Have I got on enough about a bootstrap paradox? Like, aren't we here to talk about Attack on Titan? Why am I talking about a bootstrap paradox? Well, it's because a causal loop. It's the billiard ball that bumps into itself that sets everything into effect. It's amazing in this episode. And we learn what the core cause is of all the problems. Like the cause of and solution to all the problems seems to be Aron. We find out memories from Aron in the future forced everything to happen that we've seen. But it doesn't start off letting us know that. It starts off with a slower twist. It starts off with like a Christmas carol is what I kept comparing it to in the reaction. And we've got Zeke, who thinks he's the ghost of Christmas past. And he thinks he's guiding Aron through these old memories to prove how Grisha brainwashed Aron. But as he's going in through these scenes, he slowly starts to realize, hold on, I'm not the ghost of Christmas past in this scenario. I'm Scrooge, and I didn't even know it, which I thought was great. And there's, a comment that I saw on the reaction video that I think nails this episode. The best way to describe it in a nutshell. That comment said it's an episode that's 95% recap and still one of the best ever. Like one of the best episodes of Attack on Titan, one of the best episodes of television, and it's 95% recap. Like talking about a Bootstrap Paradox should be physically impossible. A 95% recap episode being this good should be physically impossible. But it's there and it's amazing. And in the beginning, when Zeke's trying to prove to Aron that he's been brainwashed by Grisha, Aron does lay on the sarcasm pretty heavy. And at the time, I didn't know how to interpret that. But I see, after seeing the end of the episode, then you watch it a couple more times, you see that's almost a little bit of foreshadowing. Like he's saying, oh yeah, you're going to convince me that easy. You don't even know who brainwashed who here, Zeke. But he does lay on that sarcasm pretty heavy. He takes one look through window and says, yep, you convinced me. I changed my mind. I want to go along with your plan. And I was like thinking, does he really think Zeke's going to fall for that? But then, I started to understand on some repeat viewings that he didn't expect Zeke to fall for that. He's communicating that, oh, you don't even know what you're in store for, both Zeke and the viewers here. And it's great because Zeke set about to change Aron's mind, but I think what we see happen here is it's Zeke's mind that gets changed. Like Zeke wanted to change Aron's mind about Grisha to say, look, our father brainwashed you. But then Zeke is the one whose mind was changed about who Grisha really was. And that was kind of fulfilling for me. And it makes me see everybody in a new light. Aron in a new light, Grisha in a new light, Zeke in a new light. The three principles in this episode. It's crazy. And then some more insight we get with Grisha is that he actually delayed taking the Founding Titan. He discovered the location of that crystal cavern, the Rice family ceremonial chasm. I don't know what you call that place, that basement of the Fritz family going by the name of Rice. Several years before he actually claimed the Founding Titan. But you see that Grisha starts to question, like, is that really what he wants to do? Like, it is not an internal drive of Grisha's, which is different from what I had expected from what we'd seen up until this point. Like I said, this episode doesn't just inform Zeke, but it so strongly informs the viewer of Attack on Titan and the fans of Attack on Titan in this moment. But Grisha really tried to avoid taking the Founding Titan. He delayed for years. Then a crisis came about when Reiner and Bertolt attacked Shiganshina. And even then he goes and he doesn't want to take the Founding Titan. He just wants to implore the king to go and fight and to kill Reiner and to save his family. And they won't do it, because they are so beholden to the old king's vow to renounce violence and the vow of pacifism, that he cannot push them in that direction. They fully believe that the people of Paradis deserve the punishment and the ruin that's coming their way. But even in the face of that, Grisha can't transform into the Titan. He just doesn't have the heart to do it. And he collapses on his knees, and there's Aron standing over Grisha's shoulder. And he says, stand up, Dad. Go ahead. You have to do this. And we start to see that this drive from Grisha was Aron all along, because the Attack Titan has this ability to send memories back from the future. So Grisha had all of Aron's memories, and they're forcing his hand, driving him down this pathway to do what must be done. Even Kruger apparently had Aron's memories, because he mentions Mikasa and Armin, remember? And I was so puzzled by that, and I thought maybe they can remember the future. Well, we find out that that's exactly what happens with the Attack Titan. And somebody else pointed out in the comments, which I get so many cool things to think about from the comments on the reaction videos. I love those comments. But somebody said, the Founding Titan is a Titan that's beholden to its predecessors, and it's a slave to those that came before it. But the Attack Titan is a slave to those who came after which starts to make me wonder if we aren't getting close to the end of the continuous line of attack titans, because there's nobody beyond Aron sending memories back that might send this off kilter, are there? Or are there? Because I have a thought about that too. I think that there's something that happens a little bit later on, and we haven't quite gotten there yet, but Grisha does give me a little hint that there might be somebody even beyond Aron who's sending this horrific stuff all the way back. But what we discover in this moment, in that memory, that flashback to Grisha down in the Crystal Cavern when he took the Founding Titan from Frida Rice, well, what we see there is Aron is actually the devil that's been haunting the Jaeger family. And I had put so much blame on Grisha and thought what an awful thing it was that he just thrust this burden on his son who was too young to handle it. And then here we see it was the other way around. It was Aron from the future, or at least his memories from the future, that thrust this burden on Grisha and then indirectly thrust it upon himself. And it just changes the whole perspective looking at this show. Like, you can go back and watch this whole thing from the beginning now and see it in a totally different way. Like all those scenes where it seems like Grisha is cold and distant because he won't make eye contact with Aron when he's talking to him, or he doesn't look at Carla when he has something to say. And now we see why, because he was seeing his memory of Aron. And when it's reconstructed with the memory image on top of the real world image, it's like he's looking directly at future Aron while he's talking to past Aron. And it's not a cold, frigid lack of emotion or attachment to his family, but he's mesmerized by this monster that his son Aron has become, and he's realizing he's a slave to his own son in a weird way here. But one interesting and very positive thing that comes out of this is that Aron actually allows Zeke to have some closure, because Zeke has been harboring all this resentment towards Grisha and hating Grisha. And Zeke sees here that Grisha didn't brainwash Aron, that Grisha wasn't the person Zeke thought he was. And there's that really moving, touching moment when a distraught Grisha sees like this phantom memory of Zeke and wraps his arms around Zeke. And Zeke, who's really experiencing that moment, sees his father crying. And then he has this acceptance and this moment of closure when a tear goes down Zeke's cheek, and it's a tear for Grisha, and he now understands his father better, and it looks like that is a tear that communicates forgiveness and regret about how he's always pictured his dad and the relationship that could have been, and the unfair way he's thought about his father, but also that unconditional love from a father to his son, that despite the reasons that he might have to be really angry at Zeke, all he wants to do is hold him and embrace him and spend a few minutes with him before his, inevitable death as he gets consumed by Aron. And when he's hugging Zeke, he has these 3 words that he says to Zeke. And this is what I was saying before, that he kind of hints that maybe there's something more going on here. But Grisha says, "Zeke, please stop Aron." And that makes me wonder, what in the heck is Aron going to do in the future that's so horrific that it's causing Grisha to just plead with Zeke to stop Aron? And I also think in that moment, Grisha should have the ability to stop Aron. He doesn't have to give Aron the injection and turn him into the Attack Titan. He doesn't have to feed himself to Aron. But I think he's somehow chained to that inevitability of the future, that he knows he can't change it, but he sees what's going to happen, and it's so awful he wants Zeke to try to stop it. And maybe because Zeke is outside of the Attack Titan line, he thinks that Zeke can have some impact on it. But I think if Aron was really the problem, just solely Aron, maybe Grisha would try harder not to pass the Attack Titan on to Aron and to break this loop. But what I think happens is I think eventually Aron, whatever his plan is, and as bad as it might be, the real horrific part might be who Aron passes the Attack Titan onto. And it might be the person who gets the Attack Titan beyond Aron, whose memories are so horrific that Grisha's like, "Please, Zeke, stop Aron. Like, let Aron do some of this stuff, but stop him before the end." I have to think maybe Gabi. I've got this theory that Gabi could inherit the Attack Titan. And with all that rage and anger and confused emotion in her, imagine what kind of worldwide destruction she might wreak if she had the power of the Founder and the Attack Titan and all that stuff going on. So maybe whatever it is that Aron's going to do, it results with Gabi getting the Attack Titan, and that could be what Grisha's just pleading with Zeke to stop. I don't know, I'm just guessing there. Once again, I've fallen too in love with my own theory. I say don't fall too in love with your own theories, ruins your objectivity, but I'm becoming very much in love with the idea that Gabi is going to inherit the Attack Titan at the end of this series. But just as that moment is happening and Grisha's begging Zeke to stop Eren, well, Eren realizes he doesn't like where this is going, and we get a flash, and it's Eren's face making this bizarre, unhappy face. I mean, it's right up there with Yelena's ugly face. It makes this flash of a face less than 1 second, and then Eren, boom, he has Zeke back in the coordinate area, back in the paths, back in that void, showing that Eren actually has some control over this more than he let Zeke realize. He's able to control where they move, and he's able to pull Zeke back to the coordinate. But that moment when we see Eren's face flash on screen, it's not the Eren that we would say is modern day in this episode. It's the Eren from the end of Season 3 when he kissed Historia's hand. And when he kissed Historia's hand, some memories were unlocked. What I didn't realize was how much was unlocked. And apparently, I'm thinking a lot of memories of the future were unlocked, because that's when it became clear to Eren what he had to do. And that explains that dramatic, drastic, unbelievable almost change in Eren's behavior and attitude from the end of Season 3 to the beginning of the final season in that 3-4 year time jump. I think all that was unlocked in that moment. I'm not the only one who thinks that. I mean, lots and lots of people commented that that's what they think too. But that flash of his face on screen for so brief of a moment was to also, I think, communicate just how much information could be passed in a very, very short period of time. Because, you know, here in the coordinates, if you live in the past, present, and future all at once, time's an artificial construct, and it's always instantaneous and infinite at the same time. But this show continues to tell you the story. Be careful before you judge. And, you know, it's shown us this with the Eldians. It's shown us this with the people of Paradis. Sometimes it's shown us this with the Marlans. But boy, had I judged Grisha harshly from all the way back in Season 1. And this show wanted me to judge him harshly. And it gives us stuff out of context so that we judge him more and more harshly. But at the end, it proves that everybody's a product of their environment. There's more to anybody than you can ever see in first glance. And you gotta be careful about how you judge people, because man, did I misjudge Grisha. Grisha kind of a victim from beginning to end in his whole story, and it's really sad. But the whole idea that Eren is the source of all the burden in this world, I mean, more or less, it seems like he's the source of all the burden since the story's begun. Now that we look back at the moment of Shiganshina, it was his influence that forced Grisha to do what set most of these events in motion here. That is really mind-blowing to me. And I hate to use the phrase mind-blowing because it's like so easy, it doesn't offer anything. But I can't think of a better way to say it. Just the intellectual delving that I've been able to have into this mythos now. And I love a show with rewatchability, and it's kind of cliche to say that a show is infinitely rewatchable, but now with the discoveries that I've had from this episode, this Memories of the Future episode, well, it has made Attack on Titan, the first 78 episodes that got us to this point, infinitely rewatchable. And with that, I'm just going to say I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Oh no.
Do you think that's a good one? Do we need another take?
I think we might need another take.
I think that was kind of awesome, actually.
Yeah, but this thing.
All right, that's ready?
We're gonna do it one time, and then just like something's gonna fall and scream.
All right.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. If you think you might be in a position to support the channel on Patreon, there is a link in the video description. Please go check it out. Join the Patreon in order to receive early access to reactions and reviews, as well as extended cuts of the reactions and occasional bonus videos taking a look behind the scenes, as well as chat and polls to help me plan things to cover for the future of the channel. Thank you.